It's very easy to be critical of some of the chaplains, but there was no urgency. You see, there was nobody starving among the refugees. If it had been that, it would have changed the picture quite a bit. The thing was, how could we help the Palestinians who were giving stuff already, eliminating starvation question, eliminating the housing question, a little assistance. Now, if a man came to Hochman, he wasn't somebody who was coming because he hasn't got bread for tomorrow. He's coming because he needs a favor, because he wants ingress somewhere, because he wants Hochman to stick his neck out for him somewhere. And Hochman used to be bothered with this all the time because, oh boy, these guys were looking for every buck they could. But there was no urgency. Now, to help a guy stand on his own feet. Well, let me give you an instance. I mentioned to you this fellow Azriel before. Before I returned to my base in Naples, Azriel said to me, making a living is hard in Rome. But if he could get down to Pompeii, he could buy cameos. And soldiers were flooding into Rome, and he could sell these cameos, and he could make a lot of money. How could he get to Pompeii? Pompeii is south of Naples. Now, my attitude always in these things was to help the guys out if I possibly could. I had a staff car. It really was a command car. It was being driven by Isaac Bacon, who was my assistant at that time. Isaac Bacon was now the dean of Yeshiva College. We decided we would take him back with us. Now, we drove at night.
Excuse me, he was an assistant?
My assistant. He was the chaplain's assistant to me at the replacement depot near Naples. But he was the driver of the vehicle. He would be just as liable as I would be if we ever got stuck. But it was nighttime. We took him and we put him in the back seat with me because we knew there was only one checkpoint. That was at Capua. When we got close to Capua, we ducked him down in the back seat, covered him with a blanket. We were stopped by the MP. He didn't inspect us because we were a military car. I took him down to Naples, where he took a tram or something to Pompeii. He bought a load of cameos, the cheesiest stuff you ever saw in your life. He came back to me at the replacement depot. I found out another man in a nearby hospital who was going up to Rome, another Jewish guy. We put him back into a staff car, and we got him back into Rome. I saw him, no, I never saw him again, but Paperman saw him.
Rabbi Aaron Paperman.
Aaron Paperman. Yeah. Paperman met him when he was at the replacement depot. Paperman happened to meet him when he came to see me. Then the Paperman knew what we were doing, and although he was my senior, he never said a word against it. That he would never do. And he met me after the war, when he came back from a trip to Switzerland. He says, Herb, you know who I met? I met your friend Azriel up in Milan. Yeah, I said, what was he doing? He said he was buying watches from the soldiers who were coming in from Switzerland, and he had a wad of money in his hand as big enough to choke a cow. Now, what I'm trying to say is that this business of violating regulations to help a Jew, speaking for myself, I would do all the time. I'm sure that there will be a lot of chaplains who would not do this, because it's violating a regulation. And needless to say, if I had ever been caught, they would have handed me my head. But this is some of the chances that we took. We took much worse chances with Jewish American soldiers, and this will have to die with just a few of them, so I'll never make it public. But these were things that I saw as my role as a chaplain, as a Jewish chaplain. Now, there were other people I'm sure who did this. In Northern Europe, I know who did it. But in Italy, there weren't that many.
So you feel that these chaplains would have put themselves out if they saw it was a case
a real need
of starvation?
Yeah, but to help a guy get cameos.
Yeah, well,
that's what for? You know, let him go to work like everybody else in Rome was working. You want to do black marketing? Let him do black marketing. His nephew Terracina, this boxer, we smuggled him from Naples to see his parents in Rome, the same exact way. We ran him up on a car, we hid him because nobody was allowed to go into Rome without orders. I happened to have orders because I happened to be assigned the task of checking Jewish cemeteries to see that the Jewish men were being buried properly.
And that led me up to the cemetery near Rome. But most people couldn't get to Rome. Now here was a guy who was just a few miles from his parents, whom he hadn't seen in many years, didn't know whether they were alive or dead, didn't know if they had been deported. What Jewish chaplain wouldn't do whatever he could to help the guy? Well, I took my chances because it was Rachmanis, Pashit, it was Rachmanis.
Okay. Can't think of anything else that... is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I wouldn't know.
Are there any other experiences that you might have had which indicate the type of problems that they had?
You're talking vis-a-vis refugees.
Vis-a-vis refugees.
Most of our relationships were the problems that we had in the military.
Mm-hmm.
There were plenty of those, but this is not the burden of this thing.
So it was only during a period of time when a chaplain was really called upon to save lives or to provide...
to do something where there was an urgency.
That
Yeah, and I would like to repeat that. In Italy, we never had this urgency until, as I described later on, when we were faced with all these thousands of refugees who had appeared from nowhere.
And at this point, did they respond?
I don't know whether they did or not. My impression was that they did not.
And why didn't they do that time?
I don't know if they were called on. You know, the Palestinians I had worked with them all the time. So when they needed something, they didn't want them. They needed them because they needed equipment, as I described. But whether they had thrown up their hands about them and said they can't get any help from them, and came to me because they knew they could get help from me, I didn't know I could help them. But you know, when you dig, things become available, and if you take chances. Well, I'm never was sorry for whatever I did, even violating whatever regulation there was, to help not only refugees but Jewish troops too.
Okay.
Right.